...2020, as far as cinema goes, it's off to a really fantastic start. We just got out of seeing the new Grudge movie, produced by the infamous Sam Raimi, which promised to be one of the most memorable, well-written horror movies of the year. And Thor! I know you had some initial thoughts leaving the theater, so why don't you go ahead and tell our viewing audience what your feelings are on the 2020 Grudge reboot.
Well, I fell asleep during it, so it was nice to get a nap. The special effects were, I like the jump scares that they ripped pretty much directly off of Lights Out, although the special effects behind them honestly could have been stolen from Disney's Haunted Mansion. And yeah, it was definitely memorable. Sam, I'm disappointed in you.
Okay, here's the thing. Neither of us really like...
I needed coffee to wake up from it.
Here's the thing. Neither of us really liked this movie. And before going in, I had some doubts already because in recent years, Hollywood has just been puking out horror reboot after horror reboot. I remember back in 2017, we got that god-awful Rings reboot.
Oh, God.
Starring Jonathan Galecki from The Big Bang Theory. And I just remember that film being so bland and so boring and the same...
So whitewashed?
Very much so. And Hollywood blessed us with yet another one of these pointless horror reboots with The Grudge.
Yay.
Starring such big names as John Cho, Andrea Riseborough, and Damien Bashir.
I have to say something about the whole starring John Cho. When the star is in it for maybe 20 minutes of screen time total, you can't really say starring.
You know, that's very true. Because, honestly, he was a big draw for me because I really enjoy him as an actor. I loved what he did in the Star Trek movies with Hikaru Sulu. He
was one of the few in this movie that actually did a decent job on his acting to where you actually felt for the character. So... I was looking forward to him, too.
And most of the actors did a pretty decent job in this movie. Andrea Riseborough, she could be a very good horror protagonist because, first of all, she has these really big, expressive eyes. You can always tell how she's feeling because, she's very expressive. But throughout most of this movie, she is just so lifeless and dull. And the same goes for almost every single actor in this movie, except for Lynn Shay, who is pretty much playing a Looney Tunes character.
She had fun with that, though. You could tell she was having fun with that, though.
This is the scariest script I've ever read. For real.
She probably wanted to turn things up a notch and play a complete loony in this film.
Well, not really a complete loony because she wasn't really crazy. She was haunted, so... Just to let you guys know, as always, spoilers are in effect, although with this movie, that's not really that bad of a warning because it's so predictable from the first second. Heck, even the music going during the, what are those things called? The things with all all the logos.
Like the subtitles?
No, even from the music, where they were showing all the producing logos, even that was predictable. You knew what you were getting.
Yes, and another red flag for me, I read an interview where the director said that he was going to cut out a lot of the Japanese connections and he was going to Americanize this movie. He was essentially going to, cut out a lot of what makes the Grudge so appealing.
Yeah.
Because when this franchise originally began, we had Ju-on the Grudge, which was an effectively creepy movie. You have the terrifying Japanese ghost character,
the Onryo,
who has been a presence in all these movies. And in this movie, we're going to get into spoilers. The opening sequence is in Tokyo, Japan, where this woman is leaving the house of the Grudge took place in, and we see the Japanese ghost. I forget what her character's name is, but we see her for 5 seconds, and I swear, never seen again.
No,
never.
No. And then all of a sudden, the Grudge basically, I guess, hitchhikes with this woman back to the States. And don't get me wrong, the timeline was incredibly confusing for me. And then all of a sudden, somewhere in this timeline, she kills her child and her husband. And the child becomes the new form of the Grudge, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
which would be what that spirit that you normally see and relate to it.
Yeah, essentially, the spirit latches onto her. It follows her to the United States. So it's basically like the shark in Jaws from Jaws: The Revenge. You have this shark that follows Ellen Brody to the Bahamas, all the way from Amity Island, hundreds of miles away. That's essentially what happens here.
Yeah,
And
but but at least there was with Jaws, even with how ridiculous it was, the roaring shark. At least there was a reason behind it. The Brodies are shark hunters, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
This had no reason. Like Onryos, that's part of the reason why they had to take away the Japanese, is because Onryos are not that kind of spirit. Vengeful, yes. Attached to where they were murdered, yes. All those things, yes.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. They're not these ghosts that go around just, oh hey, murder mayhem, woohoo.
Mm-hmm.
That's not them.
No, it's pretty disrespectful. And I just have to say, another reason this movie angered me so much is that the director assembled these very recognizable actors. These actors have done quality work in the past. And like I said earlier, the majority of them turn in these lifeless, dull performances. Like, I swear to God, if you're to film an entire movie where the actors just always spoke like this to each other.
I'm going insane.
I'm going insane.
I'm afraid I'm going to hurt my son.
I can't believe I signed up to do this movie. I was in Mandy with Nicolas Cage. Now I'm getting chased by Americanized, whitewashed ghosts. But yeah, every performance is just completely one note, and
I'm not getting paid enough for this shit.
There's one shot of Andrea Riseborough in this movie that had me giggling like a little schoolboy. There's a close-up of her. She's looking at the security footage, and she has these big bug eyes, and she's just breathing heavily, and she is just, her eyes are darting back and forth, and it was insane. So this movie is essentially an anthology where you have all these different storylines interconnecting, kind of.
Yeah, but not really. And honestly, the timeline was a little bit weird for me.
Mm-hmm.
I can follow nonlinear timelines pretty well. I mean, hell, I was able to follow The Witcher. So, them bouncing back and forth, they actually had things happening where you're like, okay, wait, what, huh? Because she comes home from Japan to a house that doesn't look like it's a new house. It looks like, you've moved in and everything else like that. And she's happy to be with her family. And she's been gone for a while too. And then when you get to John Cho's character, he's trying to drop off closing paperwork.
Because he's a realtor.
I didn't get that. I'm like, did they just move in? Did they move in and now all of a sudden he doesn't realize they're dead? Because honestly, that would be somebody the cops would call.
I didn't really understand that either, because John Cho and Betty Giblin, I believe that's what her name is.
Yeah.
They were the most interesting aspect of this movie for me. Like, their little story. She's pregnant. He really wants to have a child, but she's not so sure. That could have been the main focus of the movie. Instead, it's only a little part of this movie. They were hands down the most interesting characters in the movie. And how does John Cho's arc in this movie end?
I honestly, I wish we had spent more time with John Cho's characters, because them being parents going through, finding out that their child could possibly have a very devastating birth defect. Yeah. And then going through that journey of, yes, we not only do we still want the kid, but we still love this child. We're looking forward to him. We're okay. We're good. I'm so proud of you. I love you. And then he comes home and murders his wife. After being possessed. Although, seriously, what kind of guy stays all night with a 7-year-old, whatever, alone in the house, instead of just going, okay, your parents haven't come home for an hour, I can't get a hold of them, I'm calling the cops.
Yeah, instead of calling the police, he stays with this little girl for hours without calling the police. And obviously, the little girl isn't what she seems. It's very obvious, because when John Cho arrives to this house, he turns away for a second. He turns back. The little girl is just standing there, looking up at him with this dead expression, and he doesn't question. He doesn't question how he didn't hear her approach him. He just acts like a total dumbass. And the end of his arc was pretty decent because his wife essentially admits that she never wanted to have a child, and so he ends up getting possessed by this evil spirit. He goes home to his wife, and he essentially attacks her with some sharp knives.
Yeah.
Not bad.
And no, I liked his thing. Honestly, if they had based the movie more around those two, instead of hopping to the ex-detective, hopping to the lady who, don't get me wrong, I loved the whole, the couple that's been married for 50 years and, how this is affecting them and everything else like that. But
you're talking about Lynn Shay and her husband?
Yeah, Lynn Shay. I loved her performance, but they weren't necessarily interesting. And God, as the assisted compassionate suicide person.
Jackie Weaver. Jackie Weaver is a character who essentially assists in suicide. She is summoned by Lin Shaye's husband to basically assist with her death. And first of all, what a sick setup.
Yeah.
But it's just incredibly uncomfortable.
She was so annoying that you were pretty much cheering for the ghosts.
And this
movie...
a
little condescending, too.
Very condescending. And, for the majority of this movie, we just have Andrea Riseborough trying to solve this mystery of what's going on with all these individuals. But there's no mystery.
There really isn't.
We know exactly what's happening. There's no red herrings. There's nothing whatsoever.
No.
And we don't even get the villain that was introduced to us in the first scene of the movie. Because, like we mentioned earlier, the Japanese ghost is in this for literally 5 seconds.
And honestly, what happened? Did the 7-year-old girl kick her ass and kick her out of the house?
I have no idea.
I mean, where is she? Because if she hitchhiked all the way to the U.S. to influence this mother who obviously loved her husband and her daughter very much to kill them, then she should be a presence.
But you have this mishmash of slightly interesting storylines and boring storylines. And unfortunately,
it was so boring.
Andrea Riseborough and her police partner Damien Bashir,
which I like too,
take up most of the runtime in this movie, but their storyline is just so boring.
See, and here's a guy who believes enough in all of the stuff that's going on. He won't go into the house, but he doesn't believe his partner when she says, I think I'm being haunted and whatever happened to your old partner is happening to me. He doesn't go, okay, give me your kid, I'll take care of him, or anything else like that. He's like, oh, that sucks.
Okay.
Bye.
Well. Bye.
Okay, so we have to get into the climax of this movie, which...
Climax.
So...
the climax.
Watch the movie Climax, directed by Gaspar Noé. Much better than this movie, much more unnerving.
Actually...
You'll get more action out of Climax than the 2020 Grudge reboot. But okay, so set up for the climax. Andrea Riseborough is afraid that she's going to end up hurting her son. She's afraid that this evil spirit is going to overtake her, make her do things that she wouldn't normally do.
Right.
So she decides to burn the house down, the house where all of these evil things have been taking place. Here's the thing.
That'll work.
She drives to the house with her son in the car, and she tells her son, look, I have to do this thing, but I want to keep you safe. So what does she do? She drives him
to the house!
She drives him to the house!
And then does the whole stay in the car.
Which, bad parenting.
Oh, drop him off with your partner and then make sure you die in that fire, chick.
Exactly.
Seriously, if you know what's going on, and you've been using Google the entire movie in order to search things out.
I know. So
it's okay. And you're using Google to search things out the entire movie, then please take a little bit of time to research what you're dealing with and realize once it's got its hooks into you, it's either you die or you kill other people. So if you're going to burn down the house to make sure nobody else gets this, make sure you kill yourself too.
And we get this incredibly lame, predictable climax where she pours gasoline all over the house. She suddenly sees her... She suddenly sees her son in the house who starts talking to her in this really creepy manner.
Why are you doing this, Mommy?
But of course...
I'm scared.
She realizes that it's not the son, it's the ghost, and she still burns down the house. And then we get the sequence afterwards where apparently everything is back to normal. You know, everything is perfect, but...
And at that point, I'm like going, seriously? That's all we had to do? Burn down a house? I don't think that works that way.
And when it cuts to the ending credits, it is so abrupt because
oh my God.
Andrea Riseborough is alone in her house. Her son is going to school. And then all
she
of a
realizes
sudden,
the boy she's hugging isn't her son.
We see this
that switch.
wide shot of the house. It just sits on the house for a couple
screaming.
of seconds.
Wait. You hear her screaming, and then
it shows the house for a couple of silent seconds, and then directed by Nicholas Pesci.
Yeah. And it was so abrupt and no music or anything to indicate the end of the movie. It's just sitting there, silence. You hear the wind a little bit. And it's giving you the little, directed by, starring, blah, blah, blah. You were actually sitting there waiting for them to do something.
Because
maybe you see her walk out or you see her walk by the window, something.
I thought there was going to be some sort of, mid-credit sting, but there was nothing. It just stayed on this house and then it faded to black. Nothing, which pretty much sums up the entire movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
From a technical standpoint, The Grudge isn't a horribly made movie. Like, some of the cinematography was decent. There is one thing that really, really annoys me. I have to talk about it.
Okay, go ahead.
This happens in so many modern horror movies, and it bugs the fucking shit out of me.
What?
So, there are so
many...
Ripping
off on other people?
Not only that, but...
Whitewashing?
No. There are so many sequences where characters will be inside a house during the day, and they won't turn on a single goddamn light.
Oh my God!
So, of course,
dark!
You have to set up an atmosphere in your horror movie, but throughout most of the movie, these characters are sitting in these dimly lit environments. At times you can barely see their expressions because it's so dark, and I'm just getting so sick of that. God.
There's other ways to play with light and shadow. I mean, obviously, Midsommar showed us that light can be just as terrifying as shadow. So you don't need to invest so heavily in one way.
And even in a film like The Conjuring, when a scene is set during the day, everything is well lit.
You can still be scary.
It's just very irritating.
The thing that irritated me most about this movie, other than the fact that it had the biggest cardinal sin for me for any horror movie, and that it was boring and predictable, is that any of the depth that came in with Ju-on, Ringu, or any of the Asiatic horror movies that we see, the thing that makes them interesting was just gone. And then the other thing is I know that some of the cinematography was okay, but honestly, the coloration annoyed the hell out of me because it looked like no matter where they went, if they were outside, inside, no matter what, it looked like there was this haze.
There were many instances where logic just completely flew out the window and characters would make dumb decisions. And I guess, the alternative would be to have these really annoying young high school kids just, doing a bunch of shit, like they did in the movie Rings or something like Truth or Dare, where the characters are just obnoxious and over the top. But they went the opposite route. And instead, the characters in this movie are just really good. Dull.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, other than John Cho, he was a highlight for me, but that's because of his acting, not because of the writing.
So, I know I said in the intro that 2020 was off to a fantastic start. I just have to say that
the sarcasm is strong with this one.
Yeah, the sarcasm is strong in me because The Grudge was just a miserable time at the movies. It's not the worst horror movie I've seen recently. That honor would go to the 2019 Black Christmas, but it just wasn't a fun time at the movies. And when we all left, everyone was talking about how ridiculous it was and how much of a waste of time it was. And Hollywood, please just learn your lesson. Seriously, stop rebooting these franchises, which should have died years ago.
Or if you're going to, make sure that you're not taking away the things that make them interesting and that make them deep. Make sure that you are doing it right and respectfully to the culture that they come from. Because seriously, that's where the horror, where the tension and everything comes from, is that you are dealing with this bigger than life thing.
Yeah. I'm going to have a grudge against the director of this movie. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us in our discussion of the 2020 Grudge reboot. Even though we didn't have a fun time watching the movie, we had a fun time talking about it with you guys. So, as far as the rest of the year, I mean, 2020 does look promising. As far as new horror movies, we have Halloween Kills, we have Antlers, we have Last Night in Soho, directed by Edgar Wright.
We also have, even though it's been delayed a lot, we also have New Mutants, which Marvel, and
I would say Fox. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
the Fox
that's true.
are the culprits there.
But
don't poo-poo the mouse. The mouse will come after your ass.
But we also have Antebellum, which is produced by Jordan Peele. So we've got a lot of really good stuff coming out this year.
Yes.
The Grudge just wasn't the way to start it.
We just have to get through January because, as you all know, January is Hollywood's dumping ground. They just dump all of their terrible horror movies this time of year. But, guys, thank you so much again. If you like this, go ahead and subscribe to our channel, Round the Clock Frights. We look forward to bringing you some more horrific content. And as always, have a scary day, boils and ghouls. Just don't go see The Grudge because you won't have a scary day at all.
You'll get a good nap out of it, though. What do you do? What do you...